That opening shot of The Sound of Music is really the quintessential picture postcard shot, really. And yet we had such terrible difficulties shooting that scene.
The Sound of Music is a timeless classic and one of the greatest musicals ever made. But did you catch the bloopers that slipped through? Let's take a closer look and uncover some surprising mistakes that made it into the final cut of this beloved film. Even perfection has its quirks. Number 20. Maria had no prior experience playing the guitar. Julie Andrews, known for her role as Maria in The Sound of Music, had no experience playing the guitar before they started filming. To get ready for her part where she sings and plays the guitar, she needed to learn the basics. However, she found it really challenging to play the guitar and sing at the same time. It was a lot to handle, especially with the cameras rolling. To ease her nerves before filming some of the guitar scenes, she sometimes took a little sip of Austrian schnapps, a strong alcoholic drink, to help her relax and feel more at ease. Christopher Plamer, who portrayed Captain Vontra, also took lessons for guitar and singing to prepare for his character. But even though he practiced, the final version of the movie didn't feature his actual singing or guitar playing. Instead, they brought in a professional singer and guitarist to re-record those parts, and their voices were used in the film instead. Number 19. Kim Karath could not swim in real life. In the part where the Vontra family is in a rowboat and it tips over, something really scary happens in real life. Kim Karath, the little girl who played Gretel, the youngest child, didn't know how to swim. When the boat turned over, everyone fell into the water. Julie Andrews, who played Maria, was supposed to grab Gretel and help her out of the water safely. But when the boat flipped, Julie lost her balance and fell backward, so she couldn't get to Gretel in time. Because of this, Kim Karath ended up swallowing a lot of water. She got sick from it and ended up throwing up, unfortunately, right on Heather Menzies, the actress who played Louisa, one of the older girls. Thankfully, Kim was okay afterward, but it was a really scary moment during filming. Number 18. Christopher Plamer didn't enjoy working on the film. Christopher Plamer, the actor who played Captain Vontra, didn't really enjoy working on The Sound of Music. He thought the movie was too sweet or sentimental for his taste. He even gave it funny nicknames like That Movie, S&M, or The Sound of Mucus, as a joke instead of The Sound of Music. While filming, he wasn't very happy, so he spent a lot of time eating and drinking to cope with how he felt. Because of that, he gained quite a bit of weight during the shoot. In fact, he gained so much that the people in charge of costumes had to change and resize his clothes to fit his larger body. Even though he gave the movie a hard time back then, he later admitted he respected how much people loved it. Here's the next unexpected slip-up that made it into the movie. Number 17. The original Vontra family house was not used in the film. The actual house where the Vontra family lived is still around, but it's not the one you see in the movie. In the film, the large house is actually a combination of two separate buildings. One was used to show the front, while another was used for the back. The interior scenes weren't filmed in a real house. They were shot on special sets created in Hollywood. The well-known gazebo where the song 16 Going on 17 was filmed wasn't real either. It was constructed just for the film. Later on, it was relocated twice, and now it's at Hellbrunn Palace in Salzburg, Austria, where fans can go see it. The courtyard of Nonnberg Abbey, where Maria lived as a nun, in the movie wasn't filmed at the actual abbey either. A designer named Boris Levin made a replica that looked so authentic, even down to the specific stones and windows, many people still think those scenes were shot at the real location. Lastly, The part where the Von Trapp family hides in a graveyard from the Nazis wasn't filmed in Austria at all. That whole scene was recorded on a studio set built on the Fox movie lot in Hollywood, even though some tour guides in Salzburg still claim it was filmed there. Number 16. The song Adelvvice was not an Australian classic. The song Adelvvice may seem like a classic Austrian folk tune, or even like the national anthem of Austria, but it isn't. It was actually composed in the United States for the Broadway musical The Sound of Music. All the music in the show that has an Austrian feel was created by the renowned songwriting duo Rodgers and Hammerstein. Adelvvice was the final song they collaborated on. Unfortunately, Oscar Hammerstein died in 1960, just 9 months after The Sound of Music premiered on stage. Even though it's not an authentic Austrian song, Adelvvice became so well known that many people worldwide thought it was part of Austria's heritage or culture. Number 15. Maria signed out her rights to the film. In 1956, a German film producer wanted to create a movie based on Maria von Trapp's book. He offered her $10,000 to purchase the rights to her story. Maria inquired if she could also receive a portion of the profits from the film. However, the producer informed her that German law prohibited movie companies from paying royalties, additional earnings from sales, to individuals who were not German citizens. At that time, Maria had already become an American citizen. Maria trusted him and signed the contract, unknowingly relinquishing all the film rights to her life story. A few weeks later, the producer returned and offered her $9,000 in cash if she would agree immediately. This was a significant sum for the Von Trapp family. They had never earned that much from singing, so she accepted the offer and took the deal. Later on, Maria discovered that the producer had deceived her. There was no such law in Germany. He had tricked her and gained complete control of her story for a minimal amount of money. Even though Maria and her family were wronged, the creators of The Sound of Music, Rodgers and Hammerstein, still provided the Von Trapps with a small share of the earnings from the play and film. They were not obligated to do so, but they chose to as a kind gesture. Nevertheless, it was only a fraction of what the Von Trapps could have made if they had retained the rights. However, Maria didn't hold any resentment. She later expressed that the joy and hope the movie and play brought to people around the globe were worth far more than money. Number 14. Maria was hired to teach only one child. Maria von Trapp didn't begin her journey as a governess for all 7 kids, as depicted in the movie. In reality, she was brought on board in 1926 to tutor just one child. Georg von Trapp, a retired naval captain, had a daughter, also named Maria, who fell seriously ill with scarlet fever. This was the same disease that had tragically claimed his wife's life 4 years prior. His daughter was unable to walk the long distance, around 4 miles, to school anymore. Therefore, Georg went to Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg to request someone to come and teach her at home. At the abbey, they selected a 21-year-old woman named Maria Augusta Kuchera. She had attended a teacher's college in Vienna and was also residing at the abbey due to her own health problems. The intention was for her to tutor the girl for just 10 months before she officially became a nun. However, as we know, things didn't unfold as expected. Maria ended up staying much longer. Number 13. Casting Julie Andrews as Maria. When screenwriter Ernest Lehman started working on The Sound of Music, he had only one actress in mind for the lead role of Maria, Julie Andrews. He thought she was the perfect fit for the part. But when director Robert Wise came on board, he initially had different ideas. His top picks were Grace Kelly, who had become the Princess of Monaco and had stopped acting, and Shirley Jones, a well-known actress famous for her roles in musicals. However, everything changed when Robert Wise saw some early footage of Mary Poppins, a film that Julie Andrews had worked on but hadn't been released yet. He was so taken by her charm, voice, and presence on screen that he quickly agreed with Lehman that Julie Andrews was indeed the right choice for Maria. Although Andrews was interested in the role, she felt a bit hesitant at first. She didn't want the movie to come off as too sweet or unrealistic, like the stage version sometimes did. But both Lehman and Wise shared her concerns. They wanted to create a story that felt more real and sincere. This made Andrews feel more at ease, and she decided to accept the role. She signed a contract with 20th Century Fox to star in the film for $225,000, a significant amount of money back then. Ultimately, casting Julie Andrews proved to be a fantastic choice. Her portrayal of Maria became one of the most cherished performances in film history and played a huge role in making The Sound of Music the classic it is today. Number 12. Vontra was a loving father. In reality, Captain Georg Vontra was a lot more affectionate and loving than the way he was depicted in the film The Sound of Music. One of the things that upset the real Vontra children was how their dad was shown as cold, strict, and distant. It's true that he used a whistle to call his kids, and each child had a unique sound so they would recognize when he was calling them. He also dressed them in matching sailor outfits. However, unlike in the movie, he didn't make them march around the house or stand in straight lines like soldiers. Actually, Georg Vontra was a kind and caring father, even though he sometimes appeared a bit overwhelmed by all his duties. According to author Tom Santopietro, it was really Maria, the stepmother, who needed to learn how to express her emotions. She had been raised in a very strict and cold environment herself, so it took her a while to show love and warmth easily. Johannes Vontra, the youngest child, once shared with the BBC that his father was a very charming man, generous, open, and not the strict military-style parent shown in the movie. He also mentioned that his mother, Maria, tried to change how the captain was portrayed in the film so that he resembled his true self more. But sadly, she couldn't persuade the filmmakers. It doesn't end there. Look what happened next. Number 11. Father Wner was replaced in the movie. One significant figure in the actual Vontra family's tale was omitted from The Sound of Music film. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, the Vontraps lost a large portion of their wealth when their bank collapsed. To make ends meet, they began renting out rooms in their spacious home. One of the tenants was a Catholic priest named Father Franz Wner. After listening to the family sing, Father Wner recognized their genuine musical ability. He took on the role of their musical director and collaborated with them to enhance their singing skills. Maria Vontra once remarked that he slowly but surely molded them into a real musical group. Because of his guidance, the family transitioned into professional singers. Father Wner even escaped Austria alongside the Vontraps and toured with them throughout Europe and the United States. A writer named Tom Santopietro referred to him as the driving musical force behind the Trapp family singers. However, the film did not feature him. Instead, they created a fictional character named Max Detweiler to represent the person who assisted with their music. The filmmakers believed that depicting a priest as their music instructor would distract from Maria's character, so they excluded Father Wner from the narrative. Number 10. Maria was portrayed as quiet. Maria Augusta Kuchera, who later became known as Maria Vontra, was born in January 1905. When she was just a child, both of her parents passed away, leaving her an orphan. She was then sent to live with an uncle who was said to be very cruel and abusive. As she grew older, Maria attended a teacher's college. During her time there, she deepened her understanding of religion and eventually converted to Catholicism. Following that, she joined the Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg and began her training to become a nun. In The Sound of Music, Maria is portrayed as quiet, shy, and gentle. However, in reality, she was vibrant and struggled to adhere to the strict rules of the convent. Maria later confessed that she created a lot of chaos at the abbey. In a 1980 article, she described herself as horrid, the worst you can imagine. She did things like breaking dishes, talking when she was meant to be silent, running around the courtyard, whistling Gregorian chants, which are meant to be serious and sacred, and even climbing onto the roof of the convent. So while the film depicted her as calm and well-behaved, the real Maria was actually full of life and sometimes a little mischievous. Number 9. Maria was unsure about marrying Captain Von Trapp. In reality, Maria was unsure about marrying Captain Georg von Trapp. In the movie The Sound of Music, they did get married about a year after she came to his house as a governess. But in real life, they were actually married in 1927, which was more than 10 years before they left Austria in 1938. Georg was much older than Maria. He was 25 years older, and their relationship didn't begin as a romantic love story. He fell in love with her and wanted her to stay, not just as a governess, but as a mother to his children. When he asked her to stay with him and take on that role, she agreed. Maria later said that she believed God helped Georg choose his words carefully. She thought that if he had just come out and asked her to marry him directly, she might have said no. At first, Maria didn't marry him because she was in love with him. She married him because she cared deeply for the children and wanted to help them. Over time, real love grew between them. And just when you thought you'd spotted them all, here's another detail the filmmakers didn't quite get right. Number 8. The Trapp family didn't sneak through Heimers. Although the Von Trapp family departed Austria just a day before the Nazis closed the borders, their exit was not as intense as depicted in the film The Sound of Music. Official records and interviews stored in the U.S. National Archives reveal that their escape was actually quite peaceful and well-organized. In a 2003 interview with Opera News, Maria, the daughter of the Von Trapps, clarified that they didn't sneak away by climbing mountains with heavy luggage and instruments, as the movie implies. Instead, they left during the day, took a train, and acted as if they were just going on a trip. She mentioned that they did tell people that they were going to America to sing, and added that they pretended everything was normal so that no one would suspect they were escaping. The family didn't travel by themselves. They were accompanied by their musical conductor, Reverend Franz Wner, and their secretary, Martha Zockbauer. In the film, Reverend Wner was transformed into the fictional character Max Detweiler, who stayed behind in Austria. However, in reality, Wner stayed with the family and assisted in guiding their musical career. Their journey started with a trip to Italy. Georg von Trapp was able to obtain Italian citizenship because he was born in a region that became part of Italy in 1920. From Italy, the family made their way to London, and then they boarded a ship to the United States. Once they arrived in America in the early 1940s, the Von Trapps toured the country as the Trapp family singers, performing music to support themselves. Eventually, they settled in Stowe, Vermont. In 1950, they opened a 27-room guest lodge, which became a popular spot. Today, the Trapp Family Lodge is still in operation and has expanded into a larger, more modern facility. It remains owned and managed by the descendants of the Von Trapp family. Number 7. The Von Trapp family wasn't wealthy as portrayed in the movie. In the film The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family is depicted as extremely wealthy. residing in a stunning house with numerous servants and no financial issues. However, their actual circumstances were quite different. In the early 1930s, the world faced a significant economic downturn known as the Great Depression. Many individuals lost their jobs and savings, and the Vontra family was no exception. They lost a large portion of their wealth when their bank collapsed, and they were no longer as affluent as they had previously been. Due to their inability to maintain their large residence, the family had to dismiss most of their staff. To help cover expenses, they began renting out rooms in their home to visitors. This was a major shift from their previous way of life. To generate additional income, the Vontraps also started considering singing as a means of making a living. They had always loved singing together as a family, but performing for an audience was a different challenge. Captain Georg von Trapp, the father, was not very keen on the idea. His daughter Eleanor mentioned in a 1978 Washington Post interview that it almost hurt her father to have his family on stage. She clarified that he wasn't being elitist, he simply wanted to shield his children and maintain their privacy. Nevertheless, the family required the funds, so they began performing at concerts and festivals. Audiences adored their music, and they quickly gained popularity. In 1936, they even secured first place in a major music competition in Austria. This achievement helped kickstart their career as a singing group and led them to perform in other nations, including the United States. Eventually, they would relocate to America to escape the threats posed by World War II and begin anew. Number 6. The children were given the wrong names in the movie. In the film The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family consists of 7 kids, each with unique names and personalities. However, in reality, their names, ages, and even the total number of children were different. In 1926, Maria, the real nun, was sent from her convent to assist with just one child. This child was also named Maria. She was the second oldest daughter of Captain Georg von Trapp. She had scarlet fever, a serious illness that had also taken her mother's life 4 years earlier. Since she was still recovering, she couldn't go back and forth to school, so Maria the governess was asked to come and teach her at home. Many people are shocked to find out that one of Georg's daughters was actually named Maria, just like the woman he would eventually marry. But in the film, none of the children's real names were used. The filmmakers chose to change all their names and even some of their genders to better suit the story. The actual Von Trapp children from Georg's first marriage were, from oldest to youngest, Rupert, Agatha, Maria, Wner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina. In the movie, the oldest child is Liesel, a 16-year-old girl who performs the well-known song 16 Going on 17. But in real life, the oldest child was Rupert, who was a man in his late 20s by the time the family left Austria. He was already a doctor. Number 5. The Von Trapp family had a passion for music. The Von Trapp family had a passion for music even before Maria entered their lives. They were already a musical household, and singing played a significant role in their daily routine. In both the true story and the film The Sound of Music, the family achieved first place at the Salzburg Music Festival. However, the actual events differ somewhat from the movie's portrayal. In the film, Captain Georg von Trapp is depicted as a stern figure who forbids music in his home. In reality, he was quite the opposite and was very encouraging of music. He and his first wife cherished music and ensured their children were immersed in it, even before Maria joined the family. Number 4. Von Trapp and Maria married earlier than the movie portrayed. In the movie The Sound of Music, Maria and Captain Georg von Trapp fall in love and get married, right as the Nazis are starting to gain power in Austria in 1938. This makes their wedding seem really intense, like they are hurrying to be together before everything goes wrong. However, that part of the film isn't accurate to what really happened. In reality, Maria and Georg Vontra tied the knot many years earlier, on November 26, 1927. That's over 10 years before the Nazis even invaded Austria. At that time, Maria was just 22 years old, while Georg was 47, showing a significant age gap between them. As time went on, Maria developed a strong connection with all the children and with Georg as well. In her own writings, Maria mentioned that she didn't marry Georg because she was head over heels in love with him right away. Instead, her love for the children was what made her want to stay with them. Over time, her feelings for Georg deepened, and they became true partners in life. When they got married in 1927, there was no threat from the Nazis yet. Hitler hadn't taken over Austria, and their marriage had nothing to do with war or politics. They began their life together peacefully, raising the children and later having 3 more of their own. It wasn't until many years later, in the late 1930s, that life in Austria turned dangerous. Georg Vontra was very much against the Nazis, and the family's safety was in jeopardy. That's when they made the decision to leave Austria, but by that time, Maria and Georg had already been married for over 10 years and had formed a strong, united family. Let's look into another surprising mistake you might have missed. Number 3. Some of Von Trapp kids were omitted in the movie. In the movie The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family has 7 kids. Each child has their own special name and personality, but they aren't exactly like the real Von Trapp kids. The filmmakers gave them new names and created different characters to make the story more engaging for viewers. The 7 children in the film were inspired by the actual children of Captain Georg von Trapp and his first wife, Agatha Whitehead. After Agatha passed away in 1922, Georg was left a widower with 7 kids. Their real names were Rupert, Agatha, Maria Franziska, Wner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina. So, the names we see in the movie like Liesel, Friedrich, Louisa, and Gretel are not their real names. The filmmakers changed these names and personalities to add drama, humor, and touching moments that fit the story better. Georg and Maria had 3 more kids after they got married in 1927. These children are not included in the movie at all. Their names were Rosemarie, born in 1929, Eleanor, born in 1931, and Johannes, born in 1939. Johannes was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. By the time he was born, the Von Trapp family had already escaped from Austria and found safety in America. The movie didn't include these 3 younger kids, probably because it was already telling a big story and needed to keep things simple for the sake of time and storytelling. Adding more children might have made the movie too complicated or too long. So, while The Sound of Music features only 7 children, the real Von Trapp family actually had 10 kids. 7 from Georg's first marriage, and 3 more with Maria. Number 2. Christopher Plummer didn't want to play Captain. Casting the role of Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music was quite a challenge. Finding someone to portray Maria was a lot easier. Many well-known actors were considered for the captain's role, such as Bing Crosby, Yul Brynner, Sean Connery, and Richard Burton. However, the film's director, Robert Wise, really had his heart set on Christopher Plummer for the part. He had seen Plummer's performances on Broadway and was really impressed by his skills. Despite this, Christopher Plummer initially had no interest in the role. He turned it down multiple times. He wasn't a fan of how the character was written and felt it might not suit him. Eventually, Robert Wise traveled all the way to London to meet with him face to face. During their meeting, Wise shared his vision for the film and how he wanted the captain to be depicted. He also assured Plamer that he could collaborate with the screenwriter to enhance the character and make him more engaging. After considering all of this, Plamer finally decided to accept the role. Back in June 1960, 20th Century Fox had spent $1,025,000 to acquire the rights to adapt The Sound of Music into a film. That amount would be equivalent to about $10,100,000 in 2016. They also agreed to give the original creators 10% of the film's profits. Number 1. 20th Century Fix was nearly bankrupt until The Sound of Music came to the rescue. Back in the early 1960s, 20th Century Fox, the movie studio, was facing serious financial issues. They had poured a ton of cash into making a film called Cleopatra. Originally, it was supposed to cost just $2 million, but due to various problems during production, the budget skyrocketed to over $44 million. Although Cleopatra did make some money at the box office, it wasn't nearly enough to cover the massive expenses. The studio was on the brink of bankruptcy. Then, The Sound of Music arrived. Initially, Fox was uncertain about how well the film would perform. Musicals had lost some of their popularity, and they were concerned that audiences wouldn't be interested. However, when The Sound of Music premiered in 1965, it became an enormous success. Audiences adored the storyline, the stunning songs, and the fantastic performances by Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer. The film was so well received that it became the highest-grossing movie of 1965. But it didn't end there. By November 1966, it had claimed the title of the highest-grossing film of all time, surpassing Gone with the Wind, which had held that record for 24 years. Thanks to the incredible success of The Sound of Music, 20th Century Fox was saved from financial ruin. The profits it generated allowed the studio to bounce back and avoid going bankrupt. This touching film didn't just become a beloved classic, it also rescued an entire film studio when it was in dire need. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.